right, you're gonna wait on the last guys coming in. So, welcome guys. Everyone is waiting for you. Don't feel like, pointed out in some way, but there you are. Welcome. All right. So, it's time to start, right? Welcome. It is a pleasure having you guys in the audience, and it's a pleasure standing here on stage and presenting this topic, building BaaS, RaaS, and DRaaS using Windows Server, System Center, and a little touch of Azure. So first thing first, what the is BaaS, RaaS, DRaaS? Anyone? Because I don't know. I got this topic, and they're like, can you present it? I'm like, oh, okay. No. It is backup as a service, restore as a service, and disaster recovery as a service. And why, my friends, is this important as a service? Well, let's look at the agenda, because what I will try to cover in this session for you guys to bring back home is not only how you should do stuff, but also the most important part, why you should do it. And try to, inspire you to connect the why with the business value and start building services. And that's the first thing, building services. We're going to talk about how to build services. We're going to talk about the components that are the objects we fill the service with. And we're going to talk about the evolution of backup software, how to design an actual service. What should you consider? What are the pitfalls, right? What can you avoid easily, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to go into demo mode, looking at in real life. How does it look? How do you do it? Sounds good? Okay, awesome. So building services. Why should we start with building services? Well, look at the past. What we have seen in the past, when I'm out in the field working under either Premier Field Engineers, Microsoft Consulting Services, or my company, I see a lot of Lord of the Ring concepts, right? And you may wonder, what is the Lord of the Ring concept? It is one server to rule them all in the data center. The most important part when building services is looking at the three different parts of a modern data center. Do you know what the three part is? It is highly resilient, highly automation, and well-structured services. Those three pillars, my friends, builds up the modern data center, and from that, you can design optimal services. In the past, we had a lot of static products, right? You had static product for static business needs. But that was the past. What we are looking at now, in the present, are a very shifting market of what is delivered to you guys to adapt to within your business. Look in Azure. How many different services doesn't Microsoft pop up every month in Azure for you to subscribe to in some way? There are a lot of different services that you can adapt to. And that's the most important part, being able to meet the constantly changing business needs. That is why you should build services. You should focus on the most important services within your company. When I have these discussions and dialogues with different companies in Europe, they're like, oh, I want to do everything. And I'm like, no, you don't want to do everything. You should pick out the most important service or services. And you should provide a cost-effective solution. Because what it all comes down to, what we did before was providing some kind of server that provided some kind of service to our static data center. That is way gone now, boys and girls. What we're doing now is, with the constantly changing business needs in the market, the different services in Amazon, in Google, in Azure, in whatever, you need to strive to connect to those services to bring business value. So how many IT managers is there in the crowd? Anyone who want to write? Oh, hello. So as an IT manager, It is very important to, provide solutions that can offload the boys and girls doing the actual work, right? Well, then that's where the automation part, some of the automation part comes in, of course. Providing services will offload not only your IT department, but it will bring high value to your company because you are able to plan your, purchases, your investments, and all that. The private cloud story, it is all good. I'm telling you, it's all good. Service level agreements. Ring a bell? Anyone heard of it? Does anyone in this audience have a service level agreement or an SLA? Wow, good. Is it best effort or is it an SLA? Please raise your hand one more time. Okay. So, and that is not, I'm not saying that, oh, that's so bad. I'm saying that is a good start because it is a start. And the fact that you guys must, accept and respect is this is a constantly changing process. You will never be finished. Woohoo, we got work until we go and retire ourselves. That's good. When we provide service level agreements to the company's defined services that we can proactively monitor, automate, and provide statistics from, you will see the different benefits there is within the private cloud story. It's a lot about cloud, right? Cloud this, cloud that. Think services. And I'm not saying that, oh, build up a service catalog. I'm saying think services. If we have on-prem exchange, God forbid, but if we have, scale it. Provide different services. Scale out the services. Build resilience. What about those SLAs? So, service level agreements, I hear this a lot. Oh, you have service level agreements. Cool. Best effort? Yeah. Then you don't have one. You have a starting point for a service level agreement, but best effort will not, meet the actual requirement. The first thing regarding the SLAs that is so important to understand is this is not a static framework. This is nothing that you just, oh, I put 2 hours writing an SLA in Word. Okay, cool. How is that applicable? How do you adapt that? How do you map that to your services? That is important. So when you have started, defining your service level agreements using the 3 different tools of recovery point objectives, time objectives, and level objectives within your data center or private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, whatever cloud, then you're good to go. Then you are ready to start saying, let's monitor our SLA so we can keep track of our SLA violations. The most important part when it comes to service level agreements is from a hosting perspective. This is very popular in the hosting perspective. We have an SLA of 2 hours. Okay, per month? No, year. Oh, good. How do you manage, maintenance and different updates and reboots and all that? Well, we don't. Okay, so you have a constantly SLA violation every year. Yeah. Maybe you should change the SLA so it will actually meet not your fantasy, but the business. So the SLA is the actual outcome of you guys going home and doing a classification of your data types. What is data types? Anyone? What is data types? Data types is not SQL or file or whatever. That is workloads, right? Data types is, for example, production data, HR data, human resources. That is data types. Those data types you must classify. Understand how are those data types built up in my data center? And how can I map a service level agreement to it? So the present, well, the most challenging part, because the cloud story of, private, public, hybrid, whatever cloud, it is somewhat, for some companies, hard to, get hand on and start to understand how can I adapt it? Because what Microsoft is saying is, oh, you should build private cloud. Wait. And then what? You have the cloud. What are you going to do with the cloud? Nothing. It's just a porchy standing in your basement going on, boom, 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 boom. You need to fill it with something, with services. Facts. How many of you guys in the audience have ever heard that size doesn't matter? Well, it doesn't. I'm telling you, it doesn't, because this concept, this, vision of building services is applicable to every sized company, SMB, CAT, EPG, whatever. You don't need an on-prem private cloud if you are an SMB customer, perhaps. Use Azure. Because everyone, am I wrong or right? Everyone has the same need. Keeping the service up and running, right? True? Do you agree? Having stuff on-prem will not cope with that. That is maintenance, that is, cost, that is humans that needs to do things with those hardware standing there. Oh, put that in Azure and let those people manage the on-prem hardware, be responsible of the online services instead. So, the components. As you may understand, there are a lot of different components that you guys can choose from. I'm from Sweden, and in Sweden we have a saying, pick the raisins out of the cookie, meaning pick up the good stuff and leave the things that you don't want. And that's the same here. We have so many different types of possibilities. Reading up and down here, you got DPM. Never underestimate, VSB, Ops Manager, Insights, Orchestrator, SMA. And this is just, some of the components. There's so much more. Cloud services. There you go. There's so much more, guys. And the funniest part about this, the funniest part about this is there is no white paper. There are no best practices. There's nothing more than your vision of how you think you should do something to provide this service. And guess what? That is the best starting point ever. It is your data center. It is your business. It is your vision that must be applicable to the actual outcome of the service. How you build it, what components you choose, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you get a value. You agree? So, the evolution of backup software. Here's the thing. Why do I even bring this? It is so important that you understand where we are heading. Because if you don't look back and think, yikes, this was like 10 years ago, you will not know the speed that we are moving forward when it comes to the evolution of software. In this case, backup software. So in the beginning, do you guys remember that good times when you went down in the basement having your tapes going down in the basement to the server and change tapes? Yeah. Happy times. Those products were so highly static. They needed different agents for different server types. And yeah, I know, some software still today are still there. We did offline backups. Remember that time? We did offline backups? Oh my God. Because the offline backups needed to fit into the backup window. And this is where, the Lionel Richie syndrome comes in. You ever heard of the Lionel Richie syndrome? No? Oh my God. You know Lionel Richie, right? Yeah, you know the song? All night long, all night. Yeah, it took all night long. That's the Lionel Richie syndrome. It took so much time providing the backup. And guess what? When it was 30 minutes left, the tape was full. Darn, that's no good. Or the tape broke, or whatever, and you lost it. So keep in mind Lionel Richie. The first wave. Lesson learned? No. Some improvements were made, of course. Microsoft introduced the VSS architecture within the Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 2. Heard of the VSS components? Yes or no? Good. They really, really suck in the beginning. But that was a good thing, because we built something, we provided something. And this reduced the backup window, the Lionel Richie song. It was short. But still, we faced the challenge when it comes to online backup. We need additional, agents or options like advanced open file options for our agents, paying $5 an agent for 500 servers. That's no good. And here's the beauty of building BaaS, RaaS, or disaster recovery as a service, boys and girls. It is a scenario-driven solution. And what do I mean by that? The scenario I was talking about when you should build services, think, visionize, be inspired, build the service. Scenario, your scenario, that is the scenario-driven solution. Build the concept that empowers different technologies. Don't be afraid of mixing up Windows, Azure backup, or in the disaster recovery scenario, use, for God's sake, Azure Site Recovery. You know why? It works. Really good. What you are getting with Azure is the second data center. Raise your hand, boys and girls. Raise your hand, okay? My God, you look silly. How many of you guys are actually having 2 or more data centers? Some of you, okay. The other guys in the audience, would you like a own data center filled with services and unlimited compute? Yeah, sounds good. Of course there's challenges. The truth is, or the reality that comes up and bites you now and then, Mr. Murphy. Hate that guy. He's like my nephew. Always comes uninvited. Ugh. But Mr. Murphy is, the challenge when it comes to extending the service within Azure. Because what we are having today is, the possibility of using PowerShell APIs within Azure, building concepts. And they are a bit, sometimes like, we want to push a square through a circular hole. It is interesting, but it is doable and you can solve it. As I said earlier, when it comes to building backup as a service, restore as a service, or disaster recovery as a service, there are no white papers. There are no nothing. So that's why you need to just figure out where to start. And here's where the design comes in. Don't try to solve everything at first strike. We have 2 different services here. Cool, let's build them. That won't do it, because you will end up in pitfall after pitfall and challenges after challenges after challenges. Keep it simple, right? Build a service. Okay, you're building disaster recovery services, right? Before you start even designing the service, you need to understand, okay, how should I map this? How is this applicable? Well, maybe I should, for those virtual servers, use Hyper-V Replica, because the classification of that data type is not useful putting up in Azure because of legal jurisdictions or whatever. But the other servers, okay, maybe I don't want to move them in Azure, but for you boys and girls, or just boys actually in the audience, who had 2 different data centers, Well, why don't you use Azure Site Recovery Manager as your central repository of management? You know what you can do with that even more? You can build managed services from that. Using PowerShell, using System Center, using your vision put up in code. Be respectful, be understandable that this will take time. Because you will face challenges. Because you are, inventing it from the first start. Maybe if there is challenges that you are facing, why don't you ask? Like, I don't understand. It is okay saying that. I don't understand. Because you're more than welcome sending me an email saying, Robert, I attended your session at NIC, and you said that I was welcome sending questions. Do it. I will provide my personal email at the end. So, building backup as a service and restore as a service. Here's the scenario. Let's take client backup, your PC, for an example. So what it comes down to is, I have somewhere where I have a service request where I can, say that I want to purchase this service, right? So that is Service Manager. When I purchase that service, what actually happens is that Orchestrator and a bunch of runbooks based on PowerShell kicks in and say, hey, Operations Manager, what is the current workload of the BaaS, the RaaS, or the DRaaS, depending on what I'm ordering. We get some statistics out of the operational database or data warehouse from Operational Manager, and from that we can decide, oh, rats, you need more compute. Because this is all what it's all about, building services. Automation, highly resilient. You can increase it, you can shrink it, depending on what Ops Manager is saying. Pretty cool, right? But this is also doable. If we measure and see that, oh, we need more compute, well, add another DPM server to the BaaS. Because here's the thing, don't see DPM, the server DPM as a server. It is an extension, an add-on, more possibilities to provide this service to more services within your data center. From that, if we need it, we use VMM. We use a service template. We deploy a new DPM server. We are topping off the configuration with the orchestrator, with some PowerShell, and we're good to go. And here's another fact, because I'm all about the truth. The portal of Service Manager. Do you like it? It is, in some scenarios, fine. In other scenarios, no. And this is where third party comes in. If you haven't had a look at Cyerson, they're here. Go talk to them. Say hi to Travis or Wally from me. You should have a look at what they're doing. The same goes within Ops Manager when you're building distributed applications. How many of you guys have built distributed applications in Ops Manager? Do you like the static approach? No. And I hear you, brothers. That's why Savision comes. This is where Savision comes in. Give you that dynamic things you want. Go see them, they're good. Just a little thing here. This night, we released the update rollout 5. And if you haven't had a look at it, I just put this in before going on stage. If you haven't had a look at it, it is a very important release in the milestone of the roadmap for DPM software. What we are including now are moving SharePoint clients, Exchange, up into Azure. And guess what? The guys in India working on developing this are doing such a great job. Next release will include even more. For the last 6 months, we have worked with Arindam, who has provided a report based on the new management pack that is out now for DPM, where you can see much more richer experience of what is actually happening. Because the reports within the DPM server, the 6 standard reports, they're not that good, to be honest. Want to see some demos? Can I get a woohoo? Oh, good. Let's do it. So the demos are, we're going to look at the back end. Let's start up with, hosting this. And then we're going to go look at the actual delivery and how we're going to verify, the backup as a service, meaning how can we provide service level tracking objects, building SLAs and SLA dashboards in Ops Manager. Sounds good? Let's do it. Let's do it. So, first thing first. The core thing that builds up the BaaS is DPM. How many of you guys are using DPM? Amen. Okay, so there's one fan. Awesome. You just scratched your nose. Okay, but love you anyway. So the thing about DPM is the way Microsoft are saying that this is how you should provide restore scenarios. Because backup is just there's not a challenge. Backup is just providing extensions to our API saying that, provide the snapshot. Because what was provided in the 2007 Service Pack 2 version of DPM was the extension of different workloads like SharePoint or ScarePoint, depending how you see on it, SQL, and so on and so forth. Within those VSS architectures in the OS and applications are the actual definitions of how you should do, of course, backup, but more importantly, how you should do restore. What's the reason? What is the primary reason you're doing backups, boys? It is insurance, nothing else. Because when the hit the fan, you better have good backups. Because then you need to understand the restore scenario. And of course, everyone in this audience have defined restore scenarios within their organization, right? No. and you know what? That is okay, but I would love you to go home and just consider maybe we should start thinking of this. Maybe it is important, because from a IT pro perspective, it is like, but from a management perspective, Mr. IT manager, it is so important that you guys are thinking that, okay, I have a service. This service is really important to the company. Why shouldn't I have a look of building a restore scenario for this and try out that restore scenario before I put it in production? But first thing first, this is DPM, and DPM defines the protection in different protection groups. The protection groups will build up a schedule of the different data sources, in this case, Exchange. So the different data sources out there are identified with the VSS architecture. We have 3 different layers within the VSS architecture, where the second one, called copy and write, is the one we are leveraging. And from that, we're able to provide online snapshots. So it is not so much to it. You install the agents, attach the agents, you provide and build up the protection group. What should you think of when you provide or build the protection group, do you think? RTO, recovery time objective, recovery point objective, and recovery level objectives. You know what those are? Anyone heard of it? Great, because I mentioned them just a few minutes ago. Good, you were listening. There's a gold star. Gold star to you, sir. So recovery point objective is how much data loss can we have? What is, according to our service level agreements, applicable within the frame of the RPO? Guess what? The RTO, what is that? Recovery time. Yes, sir. Recovery time objective, meaning what is the definition of the time frame we need to have this service up and running? And guess what? That definition comes from you guys building service level agreements, thinking services. Otherwise, you're just doing backups. I was visiting a hoster yesterday, and they're like, oh, we're having so much trouble with backups. Okay, cool. So are you thinking services? Have you built scenario-driven solutions of the restore scenarios? No, we're building backups. Okay, like we did in the 80s. Okay, check. good, but start thinking scenario-driven solutions. It will save you a lot of time and earn a few bucks. Just saying. So DPM is all about recovery. Just keep that in mind. Just about recovery and for Microsoft products only. We released the actual certification of providing restore scenarios on VMware hypervisor layer. Meaning if you're running Windows Server on VMware, it is now also certified to provide restore scenario to it. Keep that in mind. Let's move on. Let's move on to the fun part. So we talked about the backend. Look at the monitoring perspective now. This is where Ops Manager comes in. Anyone using Ops Manager? Oh, hallelujah. Anyone using Operational Insights? Oh, you're a good boy. So Ops Insights, how many of you guys heard of it? Do you know-ish what it is? So think of the possibility of providing an extension, regardless of, forget Ops Manager, an extension of collecting the logs from the Microsoft Monitoring Agent and have the unlimited compute of analyzing those logs in Azure. Is there a lot of compute power in Azure? Yeah. So you can collect logs, analyze the logs, but guess what? There's so much more. Within the different intelligence packs Microsoft has now built, they're going to release also the possibility for you guys to start build your own intelligence packs. Meaning you can build a cloud story, connect that beautifully on the on-prem Ops Manager. Once again, the scenario. So first thing first, let's have a look at this. Proactive monitoring. What's the difference between proactive and reactive monitoring? Anyone? No one? Come on, guys, shape up. It's the major difference, dudes. It's like, oh, it is burning. Or, oh, it's starting to burning. We can put that out. So what I'm seeing a lot when having the great privilege of meeting wonderful people around Europe, looking at their Ops Manager consoles, is number one, they have provided a product, right? Doing monitoring. Reactive monitoring. Meaning that it looks like a damn Christmas tree with all those colors, like 2,000 alerts. Okay, you want to do something with those alerts? Yeah, we're going to do some overrides later, dude. Okay, but shouldn't you solve it? Because if the Ops Manager are triggering an alert, you should probably, solve it. And if you have a repeat count from a rule that is like 4,000 repeats, maybe you should have a look at it. So what it all comes down to is building the concept of proactivity within Ops Manager for the service, meaning service level agreements. And service level agreements are built up by doing distributed applications. So let's have a look at how we build up a distributed application. Because what we have in Ops Manager is, of course, the possibility of import some management pack, do some magic, and from there, either we just monitor or we build a business continuity concept. That's a major difference. Because if you think twice of providing this proactivity in your data center, then you're good to go for the private cloud story. Before that, no way. No way, Jose. So let's build a distributed application. We have Dad, distributed application designer, helping us out. And let's put that in that management pack. So we will never be able to, have the different objects in our distributed application if we don't have the management pack providing the classes, providing the discovery, the seeds, the attributes and all that in Ops Manager. If we don't have that, you can't build the distributed application, meaning that you must analyze and have the onboarding process of the management pack before you start doing things in SCOM or Ops Manager. So we're going to add a component. Let's call that core, because core is cool. And the core thing in our service is, drumroll, the DPM server. We can use even further things here. I'm just showing you. SQL. Look up the actual dependency of the service. So the dependency of the service in this case, when we are designing this distributed application is, okay, we have DPM. There is something very important within DPM, the DPM database. If we lose that, or if we have some issues with that, you will have problems of the servicing the service. So we're going to put in the database. What is more important? Well, we got to have some kind of idea regarding the Windows Server object, perhaps. Let's take that. And we're going to need a component. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. And there we go. And let's search for that DPM Windows Server object. And there you go. So let's not do any more with this and just create the relation so we can have the incubation and say that, okay, so those guys rely on this, and we're going to save this distributed application. Are we done now? No. Of course not. Think now. What have we just done here? We have provided a way of seeing something, right? Seeing a service. This is the only thing we have done with the distributed application. Nothing more. The cool thing, yeah, it is pretty cool. The cool thing about distributed application is that every single DA you are creating will be a class object within Ops Manager, meaning that from that class object, you can start build different types of scenarios. And I'll show you. From this, let's have a look at this distributed application and see what it's like. So this is the distributed application we just built. As you can see, it hasn't yet discovered everything, because that's why we have the green circle without the check mark, right? But, you know, as the Swedish chefs does, they prepare, and so have I done. So I'm going to show you this distributed application instead. This is the restore capabilities that I built up for my restore scenarios in my fictive company, Contoso. And as you can see from here, we can drill down to different objects. And the good thing about, you know, providing those objects within the distributed application is that the class that defines the object within Ops Manager will continue to move on with the different views. So from here, you'll still be able to provide the different tasks. So for in this case, checking this DPM server, the different tasks will be perhaps manage the DPM server, or, yeah, I don't know, resume the disk backup, or resume whatever is failing right now. And you can build your own tasks and connect them to that class within another management pack. So it will fit your need. It is your data center, and therefore it is your need. Okay, so we have some kind of way of seeing what is happening with our servers. Okay, so let's move on and start build the concept of service level tracking. And there we have it. So service level tracking is all about providing service level tracking objects. From here, gonna give it some name, NIC. Yeah. And as you see here, here's the distributed application we just built. This distributed application goes to the market. And we define the service level objectives, SLO. And the service level objectives, you can either have the monitor state or the collection state. In this case, we're going to look at the actual health state, right? Meaning, we're going to choose the monitor state, SLO. We have the targeted class, and here, this is so important. When you build, because this is just doing it, right? When you build this, when you're doing this, you need to have the service level agreement finished. So you understand the different restored capabilities you have in your data center, the uptime needed for the service. So when you design this, you'll know that, okay, 99%, nah, but perhaps 80. And if I have unplanned maintenance, that state would be counted as downtime of my service. So then my service level object will start ticking, right? Maybe also if I have warnings, if my, God forbid, service comes in a warning health state, the SLO will tick, so the SLA will be, presented as counting. Let's start with that. Cool. So now we have told Ops Manager that the distributed application we just built should be measured with those definitions. Are we done now? No. Now we're going to start build the dashboard view for this because you need to see it, right? So from here, we build the dashboard. And we have the service level dashboard. Have you guys played around with different dashboards? Yeah? Do you like it? Because I'm like, some are good, and some have room for improvements. But none is bad. Because you can always design stuff, right? So, from here we go with the service level dashboard. Give it a name. And here we're going to provide the SLA that we just designed with the service level tracking object. So we're going to add this and say we're going to measure it for a week. Or no, let's take hours just for the fun of it. And we create it. So creating stuff in Ops Manager, that is not hard. It doesn't take time. The thing that take time, that you must be, think of is building up the design for your business. How many of you guys actually have a business continuity plan or know what business continuity is? Never underestimate business continuity and the value of it. But don't start, creating Rome in one day because you will never be able to receive it or manage it. Start small. How many of you guys are working with ITIL? Anyone? I love you guys. And ITIL is a good framework. I love it. I love processes. But the thing is, it can also be the biggest pitfall ever. And boy, you're going to hit yourself hard if you do that. The thing about ITIL is, also the same thing there. Don't start with problem, incident, change, yada, yada, yada. Start with one thing. Start with the change process, right? And start small. And build, the request for change, the RFC, use perhaps a template or don't use a template or invent something of your own or start using Service Manager powered by Cyrusson. Woohoo, there we got a bonus. Or keep it simple. That's my message. Keep it simple. Okay. So as you can see, so where's the applause? No applause? Come on. We have 100% uptime. Awesome. To be honest, this is so wrong because when looking at different SLAs at customer sites, it's more like this. It is red and it is very up and down. The reason why it is like this is that people don't have the definition. They just build something without knowing what to build because it's cool. It's not cool, it's stupid. Start small, analyze, and be, right on spot. So we know how to build up something with the backend, meaning DPN. We build, backups from there. We have some way of monitoring the actual service within Ops Manager. We can empower Ops Manager with the power of Azure using insights. And now, to the actual delivery. Here is Service Manager. And here is my different services I can choose from. So I'm choosing backup as a service. So my service offering is either, in this case, I've just built client backup and SQL backup. But let's say we go with client backup. I'm going to my request. And, oh, cool. The CMDB identifies that the user has been logged on to those two different machines. And I want to deliver BaaS to this boy. Check, please. Thank you. And here's the thing. Backup class. What? The backup class is the actual definition because the definition of the restored capabilities. If I'm providing gold backup, I'm providing, let's say, 5 recovery points per day for my SQL, for my client. If I'm choosing instead silver, I'm providing maybe 3 or 2, bronze, 1. And guess what? The gold thingy doesn't cost as much or cost much more than bronze. And when I'm ordering this, I'm going with the gold. When I'm ordering this and submitting it, my boss in Sweden will get an email saying that, okay, Robert wants gold backup on his client. It will cost the company $200 per month. Is it okay? And since my boss loves me, he's like, oh yeah. He will approve it. So what is actually happening right now, boys and girls, back home in the lab in Sweden, is Orchestrator is kicking in, talking to config, talking to Ops Manager, saying, is there room for more data sources? Yes or no? And start providing the service. This is a quite quick service, so maybe it's finished. Let's see. Are you excited? No? Have the carbs start kicking from lunch now? Come on. Whew. Let's see now. Super secret password. Oh. And, okay, should we make a deal? If this worked, can you just, way, and applause? Is it okay? That's good? Okay, awesome. So here goes nothing, boys and girls. Come on. We have some slow internet access in Sweden, sorry. And there we have it. Let's see now. And we have something? Yeah, we have it. Come on. Yay! Awesome. So the cool thing about, just going to mention it because the cool thing about providing client backup. Okay, I know what you're thinking. What's the cool thing? The cool thing is that instead of using folder redirection policies within your company, you're saying that, you know what? According to my company protection policy, that is this, I will protect your data, make it restorable, but guess what? You are in charge of it. Anyone using folder redirection? You gotta love it, right? So instead of using that, we can build this. Ease the burden of the IT staff as we talked about before, because the clients won't call in and say, hey, guess what? Problem with synchronization. Guess what? Doesn't work. Guess what? So we reduce the cases just a little bit with one service. Now, think. If we build, highly resilient services within your data center, good sir, meaning that you will be able to provision that service to your end users, making their life easier, you will reduce and cut cost. This is an example of how you can reduce cost and also do cool thing with System Center. Do you follow? Good. So now you have seen the how to do it and why to do it combined. Hopefully you get a point. So, from me to you, from my heart, thank you so much for attending this session. And, as I said, ask before you act. There's my email. Send me an email if you have questions. I will help you. This is not a trivial thing. It's not. You will perhaps find yourself in the dark area somewhere, I don't know. Then reach out. You will get help. So, thank you so much. Enjoy NIC, and I hope to see you in my last session. That is 5:20, regarding proactive monitoring in a modern data center. Hope to see you there. Thank you.